One of the things you've talked about is, you realized that pharma needed to listen to biotech. And then you mentioned biotech needed to communicate with biotech. And now you've taken that even broader, and you said CEOs should be talking to CEOs. And so I don't know much about this, but you've started a CEO summit. Can you tell me about what's the purpose of this?
They are probably the favorite meetings that or events that I've ever organized. And it's, the CEO summits are dedicated to bringing CEOs from diverse backgrounds, together, people that we would broadly define as the future of the industry, the forward thinkers, the next wave, if you will, of biotech leaders, together to talk about the challenges, the opportunities, the obstacles of leading their own individual companies, but moreover, the space, the biotech space. What issues do they need to be concerned about? What do they need to be educated about? What experiences have other CEOs gone through that may help shed light on issues that other CEOs may face or in the future?
So I would imagine that these are if people are being that open and honest and authentic, that these are very closed.
They're closed, yeah. Okay. They're totally off-the-record meetings.
That's great.
They're safe zones, if you will, for CEOs. So no investors, no media, certainly, no outsiders. We do have a select group of people that we bring in to be discussion leaders.
Sure.
People that are specialists in certain areas, and they help, facilitate, the discussions. And we build everything around case studies that are fictitious with issues embedded in those case studies. But the stories are really torn from the headlines, if you will. So if we embed issues into it, and we solicit input from our CEOs about what challenges they want to talk about, and they blind it. It goes out into the audience, and they can have an opinion about their own issue that they can discuss, with other CEOs. So it's really very powerful.
Remarkable.
It's very powerful.
They're all about leadership, growth, and education.
These are extraordinary men and women, and as I mentioned before, they're all in it, to bring therapeutics about. I don't want to use the word cures, but therapeutics are about, or treatments about for patients that they don't yet know or that they will never meet. So they're in it to solve and address a problem that causes human suffering. So, I have to applaud them all for it. They're so smart. They are just so smart. And, as I said, I'm privileged to be around them and to be somewhat a part of this, to facilitate these discussions.
Facilitate this.
Yeah, they're really pretty extraordinary.
And where do these take place? Are they set? Are they, a yearly thing?
Right now, we do two of them. We do one in Napa in the U.S., in California, and the other one is done outside of Dublin in Ireland in a beautiful space.
Wow.
So they're off the beaten path, so nobody can kind of sneak into them. People have to be invited. You can't just come to the meetings. We did find at one point in time during our second Napa meeting, a hedge fund fellow discovered that there was a biotech CEO thing going on, and he reserved rooms in our facility, and we had to call them up and say, no, you can't do that, because he was there to hear and meet
you're
them.
on to something really big when people start sneaking in.
And then we're now creating an alumni network, so that the alum from all the Napa events and the European events can get together. We're actually building a website where they can communicate with one another, and you can get news about what's happening. One of our CEOs in Europe just sold his company for $4.5 billion, and it's pretty amazing.
Really amazing.
Others have done their IPOs during this time, and others have had great successes in the clinic. So we want that to happen. And, the European CEOs want to know what's going on with the U.S. CEOs, and likewise, they want to learn from one another. So our thinking is that one day we will do a global biotech CEO summit. And, our plans are nothing less than to become the Davos of biotechnology.
I think these CEO summits, seem like...
Every time you say them, I smile because they're just so good. They're just so good.
It's just an extension of all the things you just described. It facilitates people to communicate, to connect. It gives them a safe space.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
So in some of the thinking that went into that was, I wound up talking to somebody who's really well known in the business development, world about doing something to train CEOs, and and this would have been at a very early stage. When I was at Bio, we did CEO boot camps where we brought CEOs together and we videotaped them doing presentations. We helped them develop their PPTs. Back then it was still slides, and then it became PPTs, and talk to them about the rhythm of doing an investor or a business development presentation, some of the components that you had to add into it, what made sense for your audience. Yeah. Your audience is used to listening to things or hearing things in a certain sequence. Well, you do that in order to overcome a barrier. You don't want to put a barrier in front of their grasping or understanding, what you're about. And so, the more I talk to people about developing a training program for CEOs, the more I got a little bit of pushback, especially from those people that were more mature in their space. Another training well, Sarah, other people do training programs. You don't need to do training programs. There are plenty of people out there that do that. And, well, what do we do to bring CEOs together? Because, there really isn't that same connectivity that there was when I first joined Bio. It seemed like the whole world came to the Bio meeting. Everybody involved in biotechnology or launching a company came together. And as the industry and the space has grown bigger and bigger, there's not quite the same level of connectivity. There may be in some local communities, but certainly not nationally.
Sure.
And less so internet. CEOs used to go to Bio Europe. CEOs still go to Bio Europe, but it was primarily CEOs who were acting as business development people. So they were the majority of the people. I mentioned to you the coaster fight we had in that bar at one point in time, which was hysterical. I still get coasters. I'm very thankful for that. But there isn't that same kind of interconnectivity, as you will. When you go to a Bio board meeting, Bio is great. It's a great organization. But their emerging company sector has now probably got 80 CEOs on it. You're not going to sit down and have like private one-to-one conversations. So we were looking to fill a gap, if you will. And the one advice I was given by a CEO who I will not name was, please, whatever you do, we do not want another 78-slide PowerPoint presentation shoving information down our throats, and which is how we came up with the formula for our CEO summits.
That's
where
amazing.
It's challenging because they're small, and we have to bring in a very limited number of sponsors, and we can only charge CEOs a certain amount of money, so we don't generate a lot of revenue from them.
But it sounds like for you that's not the point. Right.
It's not the point, and they're strategic, and I'm looking at them as leading to something, bigger and better, yet unknown, in the space. So in 2 or 3 years, they will have a different form, if you will, still with the same basic premise, but a different form.
So I have to ask a question about the CEO summits, and I ask this woman to woman, just out of pure curiosity. When I think, and I put this on myself, when I think of a room full of CEOs talking about their biotech companies, I picture a lot of older men.
Oh, no.
Okay, so how have you seen, I guess, first, the shift in dynamics over the years, but then how do you ensure that you're really fostering a diverse conversation and an opening opportunity for everyone.
Yeah, no, we have CEOs from all backgrounds, and certainly I would say that we have a very good representation of female CEOs at our meeting. I'm really proud of that part of it. Good. So, and we want to keep fostering that. I told you that, one of my, as I view companies, I do want to see diversity on their boards, and if their boards or their management teams or the people they surround themselves with don't demonstrate diversity, it gives me pause. And there are arguments in a number of different ways. Most CEOs will say, I need the best person on my board, and oftentimes that means that it's a male with many years of experience in the space at pharma or another, organization. So oftentimes it's hard to get female representation, but it's not that hard to get female representation in your management team. It's different, or in the research side of it. And I would argue that, most, men, when biotech first came about, they weren't experienced in biotechnology, but they were invited to be on boards. Yeah. Why do we have to have that same depth? Women who demonstrate, capability and an understanding and confidence and knowledge in this space should also be given that, opportunity. And certainly people of different ethnicities.